War is a part of society that can be found in almost every culture, both ancient and modern. From the US to ancient Egypt, conflicts have shaped the way a civilization thinks and interacts with each other. Guam is no exception. Since the pre-Latte period, ancient Chamorros have established strategies and tactics used on opposing tribes, and later the Spanish. During the Latte period, ancient Chamorros did not use bows and arrows or swords in combat. Instead, they utilized slings and sling stones and have been known to fashion spears known as fisca out of a local species of wood. Some artifacts suggest that a number of spearheads were attached with bones, some animal and some human. The fisca were around 8 feet long and 2 inches in diameter. Some were equipped with human bones on each end, most likely a form of ancestral worship. Dry plants of fibers, like poxe, the bark of a pagu tree, were believed to be soaked in coconut oil and used on spearheads. These tools were used consistently until the end of the Spanish Chamorro War. A major strategy was to watch the movements of the enemy and try to make them fall into a trap or ambush. They used hidden obstacles such as thorns, sharp fish bones, and piles of brush to block the enemies or force them onto a path. The fighters rallied behind the sound of a conch shell, which was used to signal withdrawals and movements. They marched under a banner called Bao Bao. When fighting the Spanish, the ancient Chamorros took advantage of all the uses of the terrain. They built trees and stone barricades and made trenches. Land and the right to use land was very important to the ancient Chamorros. War was used to settle land disputes. The Manachang were not allowed to participate actively in warfare, but they were used during battles. Ancient Chamorro warfare was more than a sport than warfare today. It demanded a great deal of physical skill. The wars of the ancient Chamorros were not long and drawn out like today. They typically spanned a few days spent planning on the attack, then a few hours spent playing the deadly game. After 2 or 3 people were killed, the battle would cease and the losers withdrew. Warfare in ancient Chamorro times was more of a ritual. The purpose of warfare was not to destroy the enemy, but to demonstrate superiority over the enemy and thereby raise the rank and status of the victors. Although these wars were brief, they were frequent. The major cause of wars was disagreement among acquaintances and even friends. Matters of honor were the prime cause of the ancient Chamorro times, also territorial land and fishing rights. If a life was taken by someone, then a life must be taken in revenge. The kinship system kept this reciprocal behavior between opposing clans, which went on for generations. If the villages were to lose a battle, later attempts to gather more warriors and get a revenge were expected. Warfare was encouraged by many as a means of raising village status. Sometimes ambitious men would even try to establish a new village. When the Spanish landed on Guam, Chamorros still practiced the established forms and techniques of combat and warfare. While war between the two was not sought after, it soon evolved from the mistreatment of Chamorros by the Spanish. War with the Spanish was swift and deadly to the Chamorros, equipped with far more advanced weaponry and tactics that the locals were not used to. Iron weaponry and early guns soon overwhelmed the Chamorro fighters. However, the Spanish did not rely solely on combat to subdue local resistance. The Spanish utilized tools of conquest such as intermarriage with the locals, religion, and alcohol. This allowed them to seep into the local community slowly and control a large majority of the population during that time.